you are in a state of fight or flight or freeze or shutdown, your thoughts are going to reflect that. The state you are in is going to drive the story in your mind because the mind is going to try to make meaning of this. And I just think it's so important to name that because I don't care who you are, you could be thriving in your life. But if you experience intense sensations or emotions or anxiety, your thoughts are going to reflect the state that you are in. You're going to get thoughts that are fearful, that are more sticky, maybe more catastrophic, hypervigilant, racy, low. You could feel more frustration. You can have thoughts that are telling you that this is going to last forever. You're going to find it harder to be in the present moment because the present moment kind of sucks. Your mind is going to take you into the past and you're going to have thoughts reflecting back on how you were doing better before this flare happened. Your mind's going to be wanting to go into the future and projecting the current situation into the future. Your mind is going to want to tell you that what you're feeling right now, it's going to play with that. It's going to play with, is this going to last forever? It's going to look for certainty on how long it will be here. This is normal. This does not mean that you're failing, that you've done something wrong, that you caused this flare, that it's your fault, and that you are in a setback, you are regressing in your recovery, and something's wrong. None of that is true. Even if your mind is telling you that, it is a story. It is so important that we have awareness around this because this is what it's going to get us through a flare.
It was something I was able to do with my full heart. And so it took a few years for Preston to propose after that, partially because COVID happened and all these COVID happened like a year after that. So there was a lot of things that got put on hold that were supposed to happen. But I think also maybe, this is my interpretation, maybe he needed to witness me being all in for a little while. And I demonstrated that. So I came home and it was incredible. All of a sudden I was hanging around Preston. I wasn't having thoughts about, is he the one? I was just like, I'm here. And no matter how I feel, I'm here. And there were days where I was so grateful that I stayed with my partner and opened my heart to him. And there were some days where I'm like, damn, this shit's really freaking hard. But I wasn't freaking out every time something got hard. I just was like, damn, this is hard. And I would just, learn how to tolerate those moments while also holding the desire and the trust that with more time and more skills, things would improve because I still could see my partner's goodness. I really did. And I wanted to stay.
You are not alone. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are not broken, you are not crazy, and you are most certainly not alone in this experience. However, there are more than likely some past experiences, beliefs, or expectations that are causing you to be hyper-focused on your partner, and that is totally normal. Let me explain further. I know right now it seems like your partner is the main issue. Like if they would just change or if something was different about them, then things would just feel more right and feel better for you. I know how that goes. But what if there's more to the story here? What if there is more at play? When I was in the thick of my relationship anxiety, not once was I pausing to reflect on how I was contributing to the situation. Yes, there were times when I realized I was very anxious and I wasn't happy about that, but I did not think that I was in any way related to the anxiety. I thought that it was coming from external factors, aka Nate. It was easier to put that on Nate or for my parents, for example, for getting a divorce, than to turn inward and look at me, myself, and I. But once I stopped looking for someone to blame and got curious instead, things transformed for me. And they will for you too. I learned that there is so much more complexity and nuance to relationship anxiety than initially meets the eye. I also learned that everyone has a unique combination of experiences, beliefs, and factors that are contributing to the relationship anxiety. We all have a lot of inner dynamics at play here. There are a lot of things that can impact our perception of our relationship and thus the anxiety we do or do not feel in our relationship.
And for the 2nd through 7th years, I had really bad relationship anxiety. I had one foot out the door, always constantly doubting. I almost left my partner twice. And there's a lot I've learned in my process of finally pulling my foot out the door and building the love that I always wanted, and finally stopped sabotaging and not trusting myself. So I'm hoping that today you can get some insight from my path and maybe you can apply it to yours. Number 1, your partner will not, cannot, should not meet all of your needs. Releasing him from the pressure to satisfy all these parts of me, he was actually able to meet me in the best ways that he knew how to, in the unique ways that he's really good at. And that has allowed me to enjoy the relationship for what it is, as opposed to fussing about what it's not. Rest, or you're going through a really difficult time, or you're angry. Your partner is not responsible for rescuing you from your anger. A lot of people who hear this advice, find someone who makes you happy, make that mean if I'm upset, my partner should be able to fix it. And if they can't, they're not the right partner. That is not true. So relationship advice is a lot more nuanced than that. And actually in my group programs, we actually spend a whole couple of weeks talking about disempowering belief systems that show up in relationships. We talk about how these belief systems are formed, how they serve you in one situation, but not in another. And the idea of find someone that makes you happy is empowering in the sense that your partner should add value to your life. But we can take that to an extreme. And it's important to be able to discern and know where that line is. And to know where that line is learning how to trust yourself and learning how to discern between advice that you read on the internet and what your own internal compass says. Find someone who supports you making yourself happy. Sure, your partner should add to your life, but they're not responsible for rescuing you from a difficult feeling.
Not talked about enough. Because so oftentimes we think our relationships are supposed to look like this or this. And while we can have some amazing and exciting moments, of course, throughout our relationship, when we expect it to look like that 24/7, like we see in the movies, there can be a lot of disappointment, there can be a lot of frustration, and a lot of anxiety caused. I believe that everybody has some not so glamorous parts in their relationship, but it's just not talked about often enough. So we think our relationship sucks when it's really pretty freaking awesome. Lovely and exciting moments are great in our relationship, but if we expect it to look like that 24/7, then there's going to be some disappointment.
In a long-term relationship is to every day grieve who they are not. And I actually believe that in grieving who they are not and grieving what you did not pick in a relationship, you actually start to make some space for gratitude for what you did pick, for who your partner is. Because until you make space for your grief and your rage, you won't make space for your compassion, your acceptance, and ultimately your gratitude. I had relationship anxiety for 6 out of the 9 years of my relationship. The last 2 years since I pulled my foot out the door has been some of the best years of my relationship to date. And not that much changed on the outside, but how I started looking at the relationship changed. And I'm so, so, so grateful. I want other people to feel that way.
There's a lot of things that Erica does not like that I do. There's certain things. There's a lot of things I don't like, maybe not a lot, but there's definitely things that she does that I don't particularly like. But I still love her unconditionally, and we have a great relationship and a very good bond, but I'm not looking for that bond. Excuse me. I don't go out there and search for the bond. The bond is just there because of my belief systems and my behaviors. That's why this book right here, after you've read all the main books on the reading list, but this one, How to Stop Destroying Your Relationships, A Better Guide to Dating and Relating, has a great chapter in there, very similar to this book, about things to improve your relationship. There's 5 or 6 points, and none of them have to do with emotions. If you go on social media, everything is about emotions. Everything is about feeling in love, doing something when you feel like it. This is a big mistake. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But if you're only doing things in the relationship because you're the way you feel right then, that's a problem. Okay, let's just talk about some straight facts. Couples that tend to have sex only once or twice a month tend to not have good, strong relationships. Okay? A lot of things I disagree with Jordan Peterson. I'm sure a lot of things he would disagree with me on in certain ways. But one thing I really liked what he said with him and Tammy was that one of the things that helped their relationship, even in their 50s or I think they're in their early 60s, was scheduling, not like maybe on the calendar, but saying, hey, we're going to try to have romantic intercourse twice a week. And so many people are like, no, I'm not in the mood. I'm just not. It's not, a lot of people, it's not really that. It's a lot of like, I just don't feel it. Like, I'm disgusted towards them. And that makes it feel very real because that turnoff is right there. And this is specifically for OCD and anxiety. You are going to have to work, you are going to have to work through that. And that's really important, right on the funny bone. So I just wanted to say the main, because there's so many angles, I can't cover everything. When you're going on a date, when you're meeting people, moving to seeing them in person, okay? Going somewhere that you might consider a little bit nicer, not in a dating sense, but like in a restaurant sense, but maybe not just like sitting on a park bench. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe going somewhere, right? To a breakfast or a coffee spot or something like that. Again, this is just a recommendation. You do whatever you want. So just to build a frustration tolerance, etc. Give people maybe a couple chances. Don't cut them off so quickly and see how things go. We're very, very picky nowadays. We have to look back in the past. There's a lot of pros. But as George Carlin said in his, I think it was his 92 special, which is incredible, too many options is not good. We have way, way, way too many options nowadays. I think it was 95 special anyway. And when you have too many options, it can be a bad thing. A lot of pros with that, but also a lot of cons. And we look for perfectionism too much. So thank you again.
My response was, I'm experiencing a really intense amount of grief right now, and I also need to take my daughter to this appointment. Okay, well, I know this isn't dangerous. It's very uncomfortable. It's very unpleasant, and it feels really intense, but I'm just going to bring it with me, and I'm going to take her to the appointment. And if I cry the whole way there, and while we're at her appointment, if I have to keep like going into the bathroom and sobbing, okay, I guess that's what I'll do. It doesn't make me a bad mom. It doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't mean I'm a hot mess. It doesn't mean anything other than my nervous system is in this state right now. There's a lot of grief coming up, seemingly out of nowhere. And it doesn't mean anything other than this is just what's happening. And I can still move forward and do what I need to be doing, which is taking my daughter to this appointment without judging myself for what I'm experiencing. And dropping that judgment and giving myself permission was huge. Huge. This has been something that has been so helpful for me time and time again in my recovery. When I can accept the worst case scenario, I always end up finding peace. And it's not easy to get there, and it's taken a lot of practice, but I was able to do that. I was able to accept that I might be a blubbering, sobbing mess while I drive my daughter to this appointment. I might feel like I can't handle it and I'm just gonna die from crying this hard. Or I might just be totally embarrassed in front of everybody at this appointment because I keep going into the bathroom crying. When I just decided I'm okay with that, that's fine. I can let this experience be whatever it's going to be. When I reached that place of acceptance, what ended up happening was I drove my daughter to the appointment. I didn't cry the whole time. I didn't actually cry. I just started to feel more peace with what was happening. Did all of my symptoms and sensations and emotions just vanish? No. Like, I still felt uncomfortable, but the fight was over. I dropped the rope. When you can accept what's happening and you give yourself compassion and you don't judge your experience and make meaning of it, and you can truly just let it be what it is and not allow it to mean anything about you as a human or in your recovery. It doesn't even mean anything about my recovery. It's just my state. And it's okay. I'm a human. I can have this happen right now. I don't have to like it, but it can be here. When you can get into that place and you drop the fight, you stop suffering. And what happened was I stopped suffering. I still felt uncomfortable. I still didn't feel great, but I was okay with that. Tendency or any temptation to analyze or look for certainty, just being aware of that and kind of clocking it like, oh, yep, it's doing it again, looking for certainty, looking for reassurance. I don't have to be perfect at making sure that I'm not getting sucked into that, but overall, the majority of the time, I'm letting a lot of those thoughts pass. And if I notice myself getting a little bit more pulled into them, then just being aware that I've gotten pulled into that a little bit more, that future thinking or any catastrophizing or any trying to make meaning, and gently redirecting back to the present and what I'm doing right now, because there's nothing I need to do here for this to pass. It will on its own in its own time. And when you're in a flare, there's nothing you need to fix. Again, it's just accepting where you're at, meeting yourself where you are, allowing as best you can. And if you're not able to allow and you're noticing resistance, then just allow the resistance. Accept that you're resisting. Keep anchoring into things that are bringing you joy, engaging in your life and having rhythm. It'll all shake itself out. When things come back that you have not experienced in a long time, or maybe you are experiencing these things often, but they're kind of, going up and down in intensity. When they go up in intensity and they get really loud, or they come back after they've been gone for a long time, your initial gut reaction is going to most likely be, why is this happening? And oh my God, is it back? Is this going to go away? And there's going to be fear. There's going to be fear initially. It is the first initial response that happens. What we are responsible for is the response after that first response. And not expect myself to be perfect at navigating this. That already was starting to lower some of the pressure and intensity and move me towards acceptance. So what have I been doing and how have I been responding once that initial response happened, that initial fear, shock response came? I've been slowing down and reducing pressure. And the first thing I did to reduce pressure was I just named this to my family. I told them I'm having an uptick in symptoms. I'm experiencing some stuff I haven't in a long time. So right now, I might be a little all over the place. If you see me crying because I have a bunch of grief coming up, I'm okay. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to fix me. I'll get through this. That's it. Just letting them know where I'm at and just give me some grace right now. And just pressuring yourself to recover doesn't work because it's rooted in fear and there is an urgency and intensity to it. And those things get interpreted by the brain and nervous system as danger. And in order to recover, you need to create conditions where you are sending messages of safety to your nervous system. I know that it can be very easy to fall into the trap of guilt and putting pressure on yourself to get better by doing all of the things. And there were times where I was trying to do practices to recover, and if I didn't do it for a certain amount of time, like I was supposed to, I would end up feeling really guilty about that. And I'm here to say that shaming yourself or feeling guilty and putting pressure on yourself because you missed doing a practice is far more detrimental to your recovery than actually missing the practice. What I've found has really moved the needle is taking the pressure off, doing all the things and doing them correctly, and instead shifting your focus towards what is meaningful in your life and making commitments towards that.
Be a part of it too, but are you having a shame attack? I found as I look back at my journey, I'd have these moments where I would have, it's almost like it would take over. The shame attack would take over. And a lot of it was this abandonment issue, which is tied to what I call the rejection mindset. Okay, I'll just put RM there to talk about the rejection mindset. That's what abandonment's pointing to. And it would hit at the wound of abandonment. One of my wounds is the wound of, you're ignoring me, you don't see me, you're not paying attention. So it'd be that, or it'd be a heavy shame perspective. You do see me, you're analyzing me, and you're judging me because you're seeing my vulnerability. So I have these two areas just screaming at me. And there are moments in my journey where that no one's listening, they're not paying attention. It's been at family gatherings, it's been relationally. I saw this as a pattern even relating to my wife and relating to people. A trigger would get hit of just, they're not paying attention, they're not here. And it's like I could feel myself emotionally just dropping out. For a walk where I had to learn, I am not going to separate from myself. I'm going to embrace myself lovingly because I'm spinning, and it's okay that I'm spinning, and I'm going to nurture myself down. I'm going to renounce this lie of rejection and abandonment that says I will be left alone, that God will leave me, because our brokenness tells us, even though it's a lie, our brokenness attaches to these lies, that we're going to be left alone. Someone's going to leave us alone, or God's going to leave us alone. And I remember times sitting there and like, I know what it's like to feel that, like that pull of the rug out from under you kind of moment. And it reveals I've been struggling. It reveals I've had woundedness for years. It's arising in this moment. And so then a couple things happen as I just center myself in God's love and reconnect back to myself. Hey, I'm not going to do this thing of escaping. I'm not going to check out. I'm not going to react to this. I'm going to let this get loved. And I found myself learning how to recover. There's moments too where the perfectionistic tendencies of my life that I've been shedding off more and more and more. There'll be a moment in interaction where I can see someone sees a goofy part of my journey. They see a vulnerable place. Sometimes they say something, they don't mean to be rude, or don't mean to be, but it hits a trigger of shame. I'm having a shame attack. They see my brokenness, and what's going to happen? I'm going to be left alone. They're going to leave me. They're going to reject me, and I'm going to die. You know, it's like all like, I'm going to be left alone. I'm going to die. I'm going to be left alone. I'm going to die. I'm chuckling, but in that moment, it's like it hits me hard. It's like I feel it in my chest. I feel that here. So it can cause an emotional spiral. It causes mood issues. Like our mood can shift, and this may not be a danger. It hits you. And it causes this flashbacking kind of spiral. This can even affect your physiology in all kinds of ways. It could impact your blood sugar, can have a sudden dip. It can create a cortisol release. It can hit your cardiovascular system, respiratory, your breathing. You could feel like the room is getting small. You could feel this closing in, like a claustrophobic kind of feeling. What's happening in this moment are these two things here. You're regressing to a childhood stage in your life. When I say regressing, I don't mean you're going backwards, like you're losing ground. Because a lot of times when we're having a shame attack, it's an invitation, we're going deeper. So don't take this as, oh, I'm going backwards. Everybody beat themselves up, they're going backwards. No. The regression, I mean, is you're referencing historically a time in your childhood that wasn't loved, that wasn't built in safety, that wasn't nurtured. It could be traumatic experiences. It could be flat out abandonment. A lot of our perfectionists have been massively neglected. And many can amp it up where they become OCD in their journey. And that's their control mechanism, to try to stay protected, to keep all this controlled. But it just keeps happening and happening. You're dealing with this is what you're seeing. But this down here is what's happening. So you have physiological symptoms. You feel it's that child sense where you're going back to a moment in time. And this is where I believe God uses this and can use this in your life to help you look at that time, that moment. Because many times you can go in the moment, go, what does this feel like? Don't judge it. Don't yell at a shame attack. Don't judge it. Just love. Be loving and compassionate. It's okay. What does this represent? And it brings you back to a time in history where I can think of moments where I look at myself as a child and I go, where was everybody? Oh my, where was everybody? And I feel that aloneness, and Instead of directing myself in that memory to beat up that child, to yell at it, because that would be rude, that'd be harsh, I let my thoughts be the thoughts of God, my Father, to be loving towards that. And it allows me to have some healing tears, some healing processing of what I needed in that time, and start to engage reparenting of myself. Because really, to heal from this stuff, you have to learn to be your own parent.
So number 6 is you see things worse than they are. You catastrophize. And when we catastrophize things, we're always looking doom, gloom, dread. We look at things in a way, and it's unfruitful. My family doesn't love me. They're all going to leave me. Everyone's going to hate me. I'm going to go to jail, to prison. I'm going to be sent to hell. Everything. We go destruction and damnation. Now, you may be in a tough marriage situation where a spouse could be potentially leaving. But what we do is we panic and spiral. Oh, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Or something's happening with our kids and we panic. It doesn't allow us to be sober. When you see a problem with your children, we have to be sober. Okay, there's a battle going on here. There's things I need to be aware of. That's sobriety. Shame attacks take us out of sobriety, and we get drunk with catastrophizing. We get drunk with overreacting. We get drunk with pride. We get drunk with defensiveness. We can't see what is happening in our hearts, what's happening in the lives of those around us, and how we can be a better influence for change, for transformation, for healing.
Relationship is healthy? Is it working? It also looks an awful lot like attachment trauma, anxious and preoccupied attachment. That's a different way of looking at the same set of symptoms. So it can be a challenge to differentiate what's going on, whether it's OCD or whether it's an attachment issue.
This is something my wife and I had to talk about quite a bit. I had to tell her, babe, I can't tell you everything that's going on. Usually it turns into confession for me, and I get a little bit of relief every time I tell you how bad I'm feeling. So we're going to kind of have to go with uncertainty there. You don't have to say it. One of the best things I tell our OCD sufferers, or any OCD sufferer for that matter, is telling the person, hey, I'm just not having a good day today. If they're really trying to drag it out of you, you don't have to give an answer. If it causes some discomfort in the relationship, that's okay as well. This is all part of the OCD and anxiety recovery journey. This will come up. Hundreds or thousands of articles will come up breaking down how you can know, how you can trust your gut, but your gut's been hijacked. It's also very easy to break that down. There's more than likely no such thing as gut intuition. Not in the way that people think. It's more probability and chance. So like, let's say something happens in your life and you have a gut feeling. Humans go, my gut feeling is telling me that I'm in the right relationship. But that's not how reality works more than likely. What's happening is you felt something, you connected those two with your mind by no short of saying, not using rational and logical thinking. And what you did was you said, oh, because I had a gut feeling and this happened, it meant it was supposed to be that way. But since that can't be proven or falsified, that's considered an irrational belief. I personally don't believe in gut intuition. I don't believe in karma. I don't believe in any sort of long-lasting jealousy that is beneficial. I can understand why people get jealous. I don't believe in the right marriage, that the perfect marriage. I don't believe monogamy is for everyone. I don't believe that in order to have a good relationship that someone needs to be religious. And again, so there's nothing inherently wrong with any of these things in moderation, in a balanced approach, more than likely. But the reason why this is sticking is because you're holding really strong irrational beliefs about these situations, and that is actually what's perpetuating the OCD cycle. And that's super key. The celebrity stuff as well. I mean, the tabloids. Anyone can just turn on TikTok nowadays and give relationship advice. But the people who have the best long-lasting relationships, like my in-laws' parents, Erica's parents, her father's parents, they've been married for 65 years. For people to stay together for 65 years is going to be a lot more rare today because of the instant gratification, because of everyone wanting things now, because of the low frustration tolerance that's perpetuated in our society. So it's really important to realize that long relationships, whether you're married or not, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, etc., is happening because there is compromise. There is learning to put up with the other person when they're annoying you, and so forth and so forth. Social media, you're Googling, you're looking up articles. Where rumination is more automatic, intrusive thoughts, images, sensation. Obviously, there's rumination that one can partake in, but rumination is also something that's going to fire until the fear comes down, and that's a really big thing to cover. Now, the reason why we do all these compulsions and the reason why we engage in all these avoidance behaviors is simple: to rid ourselves of chronic anxiety and panic, depersonalization and derealization, chronic shame and guilt, and intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, and urges. All the symptoms, the hodgepodge of the chicken noodle soup of symptoms, we are trying to run from those things. So what we do is we engage in these compulsions and reassurance behaviors to rid ourselves of the way we're feeling. Because to us, as OCD sufferers, it's the same thing. I want to stop here for a second. I always like to say codependency is just the ROCD of non-sufferers, and there's a lot of overlap. These tools I'm going over can be applied to any relationship. This is so far beyond ROCD or codependency or any of that. This is the problem that almost everyone in a relationship will have. And I do suggest you, everyone in this video, go watch Dr. Albert Ellis's The Dire Need for Love. It's an hour-and-a-half lecture, I believe, from the 90s. It was like 92, maybe? Terrific lecture, really will go hand in hand with this. There's 3 keys I want to talk about before we start going into how to actually recover from our OCD. And the first one is, it will 100% convince you that you're in the wrong relationship. Number 2, it will bring up any flaw, any perceived flaw of the person you're with and hone in on it. I didn't notice that 15 years ago. Oh my gosh, how did I not notice that? Oh my gosh, they're so ugly, so forth. Oh my gosh, that joke they made, they're such a terrible person. Oh, so forth and so forth. To point number 1 is it will convince you that you need to know if you're in the right relationship. And there's no such thing as the right relationship. People come together for different reasons and different cultures and different socioeconomic backgrounds. You know, a lot of the old school methods, they'll just go round and round and just receive reassurance and stuff like that. You know, when people are like, oh, you don't have to be with him, he's such a mean guy. And like, that's not actually, but that gray area for there's no line. Where people are like, how do I know when when I should leave, and how do I know when I shouldn't? This is where the uncertainty comes in. It's really, really, really important. And inside that, why you're stuck, aka the belief systems, the compulsions, and the avoidance, why relapses happen, setbacks happen, because they do, why there's no timeline, that why themes will change and everything will morph. Understanding the practical application of OCD is so much more important than understanding anything about neuroscience, neurophysiology, the prefrontal cortex, dopamine and serotonin. Look, we know the dopamine and serotonin theory isn't substantial by any means. Now, can medications, I can't advise on medications, but can medications help you in this journey, take the edge off? Sure. Is it going to change your belief system about, you know, if your partner leaves you, that your life is ruined? Absolutely not. We know this isn't true because if it was truly a genesis of a chemical imbalance theory, we'll use serotonin and dopamine. The moment that was put back in balance, you would never suffer ever again. You would be cured. You wouldn't be recovered. You'd be cured. That says that things have to pan out the way you want. So you might as well start building other aspects of your life and taking this along for the ride. That is so key when it comes to the meat and potatoes, because many people think the meat and potatoes is breaking down beliefs, is doing the exposures. Those are the pinpricks to the engine, to the heart of OCD. You're poking in the heart, but the rest of all the wounds to the OCD cycle, just using this as a metaphor, is wearing discomfort, building lifestyle factors, and everything like that. Never knowing that you're in the right relationship. And you write these out yourself. Writing it down is critical. Okay, so here's the belief system. I absolutely must know if I'm in the right relationship. It is awful, terrible, and horrible to not know if I'm in the right relationship. I can't stand not knowing if I'm in the right relationship. Life is not worthwhile if I can't know if I'm in the right relationship. And that will lead to extreme intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, urges, rumination, analyzing, severe panic, anxiety, depression, maybe even depersonalization and derealization. And those maladaptive behaviors we were talking about before would be everything we covered in the beginning. So that's leaving relationships, constantly compulsively searching social media, looking on Facebook at old photos, avoiding intimacy, not getting married, not moving in together, not having children if those are your goals, and all the other common avoidance and compulsive behaviors that we covered in the very beginning. And then what happens is all those are intertwined into that unhealthy A plus B equals C. Now, I want to stop there for a second and talk about how most people operate, including myself. I was for many years, my entire life. I think it's an innate, biological, learned, conditioned way to think. You made me angry. You guilted me. You shamed me. Stop guilting me. Stop shaming me. You're offending me. We hear this all day, every day, in other different forms. You made me angry, much more common. But did they? Did they actually create? Are they the genesis of your guilt? Is this the genesis of your anxiety? I don't know. Pretty easy to break down. Let me show you. Let's say someone called your wife an idiot in public. 100 people, different scenarios, but the same thing. Your wife's an idiot. Hit her at the bar. Oh, idiot, was moron, stupid. 6 people might want to start a fight. 12 people might yell. 8 people might pull them aside and have a talk. 20 people might laugh about it. And the rest might be completely indifferent. The activating event, the person calling your wife an idiot, is the same. Your belief system about the event, that is what's perpetuating the unhealthy emotions. Anger, resentment, physical altercation in these scenarios and stuff like that. Now, I want to go to a healthier option, okay? And then we'll go through one more exercise in the book, because I think it's really important to break down, maybe another fear, such what we were doing, the fear of not being in the right relationship, the fear of the relationship ending. We'll do that one next. I think it's a really good one. A lot of people suffer with that, because what happens is you put your relationship on the pedestal, and that's your entire identity. So now let's go to your disputing your irrational beliefs. So these are the questions you want to ask yourself. The way I do it was I would put question, cue, and then answer rationally. So where is this belief holding me? Is it helpful or getting me into trouble? I must know if I'm in the right relationship or not, or wrong relationship. Well, it's obviously getting me jack shit, because I'm having all these unhealthy emotions and compulsive behaviors that are keeping that cycle alive. Where is the evidence to support my irrational belief? There's no evidence. There's no universal principle saying that you need to know if you're in this relationship or not. It might feel that way, but there's no substantial relationship. Hopefully they're not redoing. They've been doing the what's it called? The driveway to one of my neighbor's house. Be breaking it up. I have to move inside. Is it really awful? Is it 100% terrible? No, we know it's not. Because there's a lot of people out there that will never know. Divorces happen all the time in Western areas like America, the UK. The divorce rates are 50% after 8-12 years. Is it logical? It's not logical. It's not logical because there's no universal truth. There's no universal truth saying that you must know if you're in the right relationship or not. This is going to take some time to adopt, but once you start to adopt it, this is how you get to your new functional, healthy emotions and behaviors.
Words. Mark, sometimes you got to learn to let things be. And it was in that moment that I realized I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to, in relationships, yes, we need to work through things. Yes, don't let the sun go down in your wrath. But all those rules were so rigid, I didn't give room for the Holy Spirit. And so one of the compulsions I had to starve was learning to starve this, following this disturbing anxiety or guilt that I got to do something to fix. And I began to start practicing waiting more. Waiting on the Lord, waiting on it. And I don't mean waiting on the Lord, I'm just avoiding. It's more waiting, I'm giving this over to God because I don't know that my interpretation of this is accurate and I can't force this. So I'm just going to be open. I'm going to be open and see what God does. I have to learn to let relationships be. And then really our actions are more compulsive. We just want to feel better. And we don't give God greater room to work, to give us wisdom. and look for the big moment. I got this person saved. I had this deep, deep, amazing conversation. We don't appreciate the simple everyday. Sometimes it seems boring, but those are the things of day-to-day building those moments of relational love that can really make the difference in people's lives.
Quickly to yourself, I've got anxiety, I've just getting over this one theme, and now my partner's doing this shit which is bloody annoying me, and if only he didn't do that, then I would be fine, and I've been through so much, and da-da-da-da-da. You've quickly got a cycle that's now ramping up inside. We say these phrases very quickly. It's very fast phrases said to ourselves in all types of emotional suffering that we say very quickly at the beginning without even being aware that that is what's occurring. So that's what's going to happen with our OCD. You'll be watching like a hawk their behaviors. Oh, why did he or she have to do that? Why did she have to say that? Why did she do that thing? And it's going to pick things like, it's going to pick silly jokes, annoyance, maybe stupid things they do on social media, silly gestures that they do that you think, oh, if only they didn't do that, that would put me off them or turn me off them, or they say a silly thing, or they do something they think to look cool that you don't think looks cool, and all these things add up, and until you get to a point where you're like, right, I've just got to get out of this, I've got to get out, I've got this unbearable, and then you've got that situation occurring. So I think with all these situations, it's about realizing that humans do have any kind of sensation and thoughts and ideas about their relationships and things they're involved in, and these things aren't perfect.
Do they tell you they love you every day? Do they bring you roses? And all this nonsense. It's just nonsense. The reason why our OCD is one of the biggest fears, top 3 biggest fears with OCD, not that it's hard to recover from, is because of the irrational beliefs as a society surrounding relationships. That is so important to cover. So important to cover. Okay. Number 6. You're not taking recovery seriously. This goes back to everything we just said. You're still performing small compulsions, understandable, but not good for you. You're still performing small avoidance behaviors, understandable, but not good for you. You're still not doing what's necessary. You haven't read the books on the reading list. You haven't educated yourself on the belief systems. You haven't moved with patience, which is so hard. Patience was so hard for me. It took me years and years and years to feel even semi-confident in patience for me, someone with ADHD. And again, we're not talking about fears of ADHD and just all these natural instincts that I have as being more of like this type A person in certain times. Patience was not easy for me. So I had to buckle down and take recovery a little bit more seriously than I was. And again, this topic is so important to break down from a good versus bad perspective, which is the 3rd book on the reading list, The Myth of Self-Esteem. This is a very touchy subject for people because they hold high emotional regard based around cheating. Again, I think cheating is not a good action because it leads to a bunch of other problems, deception, having to lie, and just a flat out annoyance of having to tiptoe around. It's much better to not cheat from a behavioral standpoint and the things you have to deal with. But do I think that the person is inherently good or bad because they cheat? No, I do not.
By compulsions. Now that doesn't mean that you wouldn't have any discomfort at all if you realized you wanted to end your relationship. But if you're experiencing OCD, you definitely have discomfort, and it's followed by compulsions. And let me tell you, most of you have a lot more compulsions than you even realize. And don't let OCD convince you that these compulsions are normal. It's not normal to think about the same topic for hours and days and weeks. It's not normal to Google over and over again or to seek reassurance about the same topic from multiple people. This is compulsive, and it leads to the cycle. And the cycle will continue. In the next relationship, if you end up ending this one, which is a common compulsion of avoidance, it will continue out of relationships, even if it's not as strong. So until we stop the cycle, it will continue. I've been there. I know how difficult it is, but I just want you to understand that you can recover from relationship OCD. You can be happy, you can be joyful, and you can be confident about your relationship when you get the proper help. I would love to hear what you think about this video and if it was helpful to provide at least a little bit of clarity. Check out the link in the description below if you need help. We're here to talk with you. We have overcome relationship OCD, and you can too. Talk to you soon.
welcome to everything you need to know about how to recover from our OCD. In this video, I'm going to cover 10 different points. We're going to talk everything about chasing
tolerance and persistence. So what happens, people don't like the discomfort involved with life and involved with OCD. Now, life is going to hit you hard. There's going to be things that come out of the blue, things that are going to hit you that you weren't expecting, things that, oh, if only that hadn't happened, that's going to happen. Anxiety is going to, and OCD is going to do the same. It's going to attack you the moment you're going on your holiday, the moment your honeymoon's coming up, the moment anything that you're trying to do towards your goals and it wants to get in there. That's what it does, okay? And you get setbacks that come out of nowhere. You've been feeling great for ages, then bang, shit, I'm feeling bad again. That's what it does. It's a bumpy ride. It's this sort of roller coaster journey with lots of ups and downs. And then as it's leveling out, suddenly bang, you have a setback, you go down a dip, and then suddenly you feel the best you've ever felt. It goes like that. That's the nature of the journey, okay? It's bumpy. We've got to expect that, all right? Now, in relation to persistence with it, you've got to keep going, no matter what your situation is, whether you've just broken up with your partner and your OCD's come back, you've had OCD stuck for 10 years, you've been free a year or 6 months, and then bang, you're feeling the worst. The only option is forwards. Because what's the point of even thinking of a dead end? People spend so long in the OCD community going, if only that hadn't happened. Oh, that shouldn't have happened. I've worked so hard, this shouldn't happen. That's a load of crap, because these things happen. These things do happen, okay? You're going to have things like, oh, you were on meds for ages, you came off, then you had a setback, now you feel worse than ever. Those things are going to happen. That's part of the journey. Now, I'm known for sort of telling it how it is. And I try and come from a really sort of compassionate position, but with a tough love stance, because it's so important with the journey. I see so often when people with OCD, everyone is trying to really comfort them and be so comfortable all around them, and it doesn't help. You need to look at what the problem is, and you need to intervene there and create change. Changing your life in all areas, changing anxiety and OCD, is about getting in there and creating change. That's what I'm about. I'm not about telling you what makes you, I'm not about talking to you about what makes you feel comfortable. I'm not talking about saying it's only OCD, because we know that's a compulsive cycle that's going to last forever, right? Now, people get into that situation so often because it's so common from the beginning. I think every person who comes in the door has had family, friends telling them, oh, it's not that big a deal. Oh, don't worry. Oh, it's not OCD over and over. You've heard that all the time. But it doesn't work with OCD, because OCD is always going for, but this time it's real. This time it's different. That's what it does. That's the nature of OCD. Okay? So you need to factor that in. You need to factor in that OCD is going to specifically say to you, this is the exception. If it didn't say it was the exception, it wouldn't be much of a disorder, because you'd be fine all the time going along with it just screaming its head off saying, oh, this is OCD. That wouldn't do nothing, because you wouldn't care that it was OCD. Then it wouldn't scream its head off. It would fade down. But you're not going to, it's always going to scream it's real. It's always going to scream it's this time it's different. And it can convince you of anything. People don't realize that, how quickly it can. If I said to somebody, that person's a murderer, yeah? In 2 seconds, wow, it changes in your mind. My God, look at how I look at them differently. That's how quick a perception changes. But OCD can create that about anything. It can tell you your partner's been cheating your whole life. It can tell you your dad's not really your dad. It can tell you that you've got a disease and be convinced of it in 2 seconds that you've got it and you're going to die. It's going to do all that stuff, because that is the nature of what it does. So with OCD, we've got to be really realistic about that. Your journey is going to feel like it's jolted left, right and center by the new things it comes up with and tries to tell you, oh, this is real, this is happening, okay? So we've got to be aware that we don't need to take immediate action right now this second, because it's always going to call for that all the time. It's always going to say there's something to do, there's something to happen, there's something to this. It's going to do that. It takes a natural worry, and then it will say you're going to die from it, or you're going to go to jail for it, or whatever. That's what it does. And nothing in life is as scary as your mind is making it out to be. Okay, that's what OCD is like. It's going to do all those things. And
you look at yourself in the mirror and you say this, Nick, you are more than likely going to suffer for a lot longer than you want to suffer from. You'll see symptom relief along the way. It might take you 5 years to develop unconditional self-life and other acceptance. You're going to have to work on your balance problems. You're going to have to work on your addictions. You can't force it, and this is going to take time. Months might go by where you might be coasting and not even knowing it, and you have to reformulate what you're doing and then push forward. This is so overlooked in any rehab facility when it comes to anything in life. I don't care if it's a pain problem, a mental health problem, a business problem, whatever it is. Humans want things and they want them given to them right now. Nothing, almost nothing good comes from instant gratification. There needs to be a balance. Well, that's not true. Instant gratification can be good in ways, but most people want instant gratification in everything they do. As Dr. Albert Ellis says in The Myth of Self-Esteem, I was reading it last night, there needs to be a fine balance between the two. So when you have long-term goals and you understand the process is going to take a while and you have to build low frustration tolerance. Now let's talk about low frustration tolerance with exposures, physical outward exposures that Momin talked about. Momin was doing a lot of disputing. He talked about this in his 2-year recovery video for the first year. A lot of disputing, a lot of comfort disputing, not going towards any sort of his big triggers behaviorally. And he really didn't get anywhere in the long term. He made progress. That's amazing. He understood some of his irrational beliefs, but he needed to go out there and get uncomfortable, building the life structure, having a decent sleep schedule, not looking into all the perfect sleep nonsense, such as the blue light blocking glasses or the perfect pillow and the perfect this. It's all based around this perfection. When you're always looking for the perfect formula, changing your core fear through behavioral changes, whether it's physical or outward mental compulsions, they'll have to come down over time with time and patience. This all cultivates low frustration tolerance. You have to build your frustration tolerance up. Things are not going to go your way in plan. You attach your identity to that. You go, oh, everything was good today, and you get a boost. That's not good, because what happens is when things don't go your way, you plummet and crash, because you have conditional acceptance about your routines. This is why this takes such a long time to develop. Humans, in their basic sense, whether it's evolutionary, biology, cultural, environmental, family beliefs, we are highly integrated to be conditionally accepted humans. There's a couple reasons. Conditional acceptance is much easier to develop. It doesn't take a lot of critical analysis. You think emotionally, whether it's the limbic system and all the other neurophysiologic stuff that people like to talk about in neuroplasticity. None of that actually matters. I'm telling you because I took multiple doctoral level neurology classes, and these people still had irrational beliefs because they didn't understand this, just like I wouldn't have if I didn't have obsessive compulsive disorder. So we can't hold anyone to a standard when they just don't know. Now, the reason why we talk about life routines, like I said, and, balancing coffee, and as we see humans, we see it all the time. Celebrities, no more social media, I'm living off the grid, or no more caffeine for the rest of my life. Now, if you have a problem with something and you're drinking 20 cups of coffee a day, or addicted to, an adult sites, or you're addicted to all these things, that's a different story. But a lot of people just don't have any balance. It's either this or that, this or that, this or that, that. And that doesn't get you anywhere. It's the yo-yo dieting. It's either all or nothing with exercise or that. It's about reality of life. You are a human floating on this earth. There is no such thing as good and bad. Only thinking makes it so. And stuff. And then when you cut people off, and then some of the beliefs that you hold is, I can't stand it, or you put conditional acceptance on these other people. And that's really, really just not a good way to go about it, because when you put conditional acceptance on other people and you put conditional acceptance on yourself, what you're doing is you're not allowing yourself to have these other conversations. You don't have to agree with people, but it's so easy to want to delete someone or get them out of your life. And then that doesn't really do anything for you but hold you back. So you never need to write anyone off fully as a human. You could, even Albert Ellis talked about Hitler. He said with his philosophy, he didn't even dislike Hitler. He just disliked the acts that he did, but he didn't write him off as a human, since there were people who still thought he was a good person. So he obviously had likable qualities that people liked. He obviously had detrimental qualities to human beings because he murdered lots of human beings. But this type of philosophy allows you to see people in a better aspect through why they act potentially the way they do. Of life. You're never going to be able to do what you want to do 100% of the time, even even in the most optimal scenario, you're retired, you're worth $100 million, you're still going to have to go to the DMV, which you might not like doing. There's things you're going to want to do. When we breed a society with irrational beliefs based around that you must let me do whatever I want, you will never have high frustration tolerance. You will always have low frustration tolerance like that. It's not going to get you anywhere. Those are the main ones I wanted to talk about. This wasn't going to be too long of a video because the points are very, very short in what I wanted to talk about. But I do have some final points for you and how you can build a low frustration tolerance. Setting a good routine and a structure. I mean, getting up at a time that's healthy. I understand some people are night shift people. You know what I mean. Not laying in bed all day. The reading list. Not skim reading. Actually going over and reading the books on the reading list. That's absolutely super important. Not putting not putting recovery off because you're really anxious. My new fears that I'm working on, I'm having basically severe relapses a couple times a week, really bad ones with my body image stuff. But that's just how it is. It was like this in the beginning of somatic OCD. So, but I still force myself to do things even when I don't want to do them. And that's okay because that's what needs to be done. And wearing anxiety like an uncomfortable coat. I did a video on this yesterday. I did a Facebook post on this today. It's so important because that's the majority of your journey. There's never going to be a time where OCD is going to let its guard down for you to completely just move in with recovery. You're going to have to go and work towards recovery. You're going to have to build your frustration tolerance. You're going to have to get very comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's all part of the recovery journey. I'm telling you, you have the ability to do it with time and practice. So
major setbacks happen. You're keeping the door wide open for a relapse because OCD is waiting to pounce on any vulnerability. It's looking to pounce on any kind of crooked thinking that you slip back into. It tends to pounce on any kind of compulsions that you start letting back in and start slipping back in and say, oh yeah, that's fine, I'll justify that compulsion. Maybe sneaky avoidance starts coming back. Okay, so remember that just because you feel better, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting better, okay? It's great that you feel better initially, but to get better and to get to recovery, we have to really push through even when we're doing okay. And please don't just settle for okay. Don't just settle for manageable symptoms. Don't just settle for functioning. Like I say, I get it. When I was stuck with OCD, I could hardly function. My brain felt like it was on fire. I felt frazzled. It felt scrambled. I felt so overwhelmed. I just felt chronic guilt and shame all day long. So when I could start to function again at a basic level, I just settled for that. I said, that will do me. That's okay. That will do me. That's all I want. But the problem is that OCD came barging through the back door and completely caught me off guard, and I was going through major relapses, major setbacks quite frequently. They were very common, they were very regular, because I wasn't staying on top of the maintenance work that was keeping OCD at bay. And it's very important that we do consistent work, because otherwise OCD will pick up the armory, it will gather the arsenal, it will build its arsenal, and it will hit you like a missile coming to get you, and that's kind of how it feels. And what tends to happen is that you can feel it ramping up, you can feel it building up in the background when we just sort of try and keep it there. No, go away, go away, go away, go away, no, boom. Because that's what tends to happen is that when we get complacent, when we get cocky, and when we think we're out of the woods, when we feel like we've nailed it, when we feel like, you know what, yeah, that'll do now, I don't need to do any recovery work, I'm feeling better, I'm functioning at a decent level, I'm back to work, I'm back to socialising, OCD isn't as bad now, I'm fine, I'll just take the foot off the gas completely, I'll stop attending coaching calls, I'll give up the books, I won't do my disputing unless I can be asked. I'll let the odd compulsions slide. Exposures, fuck that, they were too difficult. I've done mine now, I'm in the clear. Big mistake. Okay? Setbacks and relapses are very likely to happen when you're coasting. Okay? You've got to be on top of the work. You've got to maintain the work, because in order for your recovery to be sustained, in order for your mental freedom and your mental peace to be sustained, it will require consistent work. But please don't underestimate the disorder that you're dealing with here. OCD is a chronic disorder. It's a debilitating disorder at its worst, right? It isn't going to just budge because you've done a couple of months of reading, or you've done some disputing, or you've done a few exposures, or you've had 3 calls. It doesn't just budge like that. It's very stubborn. It's very resilient. It's very relentless by nature. It's not going to just suddenly let you off the hook and say, yeah, that's fine, I'll ease off for your big vacation. I'll ease off for your wedding day. I'll ease off for the birth of your child. I'll ease off because you want OCD gone. No. When we start getting better, and as we face life stresses, it's very often that OCD comes storming back in. It comes steaming back in, all steam ahead, boom, ready to take you out. I'm not saying this to scare you, I'm just showing you this to be aware, because it's very important that we're aware of what OCD can do when we take the foot off the gas completely. Even when you're doing well, and please don't think this as a sales pitch, but even when you're doing well, I would advise just sort of monthly calls, if you can, just to check in, just to stay on top of things. It's very important that we're sharpening the tools, that we're strengthening the armour, the OCD defence armour, we're strengthening that, because please don't underestimate what this disorder can do, right? Especially when we're being complacent, and we're being cocky, and we think we're out of the woods. And I learnt this the hard way. I really learnt this the hard way. In 2021, that was my last major setback with OCD. And I have to be realistic with you. I can't sugarcoat the time period of the recovery journey, because it does take time. So I can't bullshit you. This was 2 years into the journey. And many people think, what? 2 years and you had a setback? Yeah, because OCD is fucking relentless, right? OCD doesn't take any prisoners, put it that way. If you ease up, if you get complacent, that was my biggest problem. I got complacent. I thought I was out of the woods. I thought, yes, I've done it. Oh, fuck it, OCD don't really bother about that. And I got myself to a very good place. I was in a solid position. It shows you can make great progress within a shorter space of time. You know, even a year in, 18 months into the journey, I was in a much more stable place mentally. I was thinking much more rationally. Unconditional acceptance was starting to piece together. I was starting to really build momentum, and I was in a good place. I really was. But the problem is that I took my foot off the gas completely and almost pretended I just didn't have OCD, and my thinking started to slip back. It started to get very black and white again, very rigid. It started to go back to the crooked way of thinking. I let compulsions slide. I said, I'll deal with it in a crisis. That was a big problem. I'll deal with it if it gets bad again. I'll wait until a crisis. I'll wait until I need help before I book it for calls. I'll wait until I'm in desperate need. Big mistake, Sam. Big mistake. Because what had happened was that in 2021 was that I had a life stressor, and then OCD completely hit me full blown to a point where it was about a month of just prolonged suffering. There were tears, there was crying, all kinds of venting was going on. I felt even more hopeless when I first came in. Think of it like that, right? 2 years into the journey, I'm supposed to be having a coffee with you, and I ain't even drunk any, but yeah, hang on. Getting carried away, you see. All a bit too hot still. So yeah, you could tell that 2 years in, right? And I felt even more hopeless when I first came in. Now, there's no logic behind that, is there? Because you'd be thinking, well, hang on a minute, you've gone 2 years in and you were in a much better place. Surely you could see there was hope. But this is the problem. This is what OCD will do. It came in with complete and utter conviction that I was the exception, that mine wasn't OCD, and this one was different, and this one was real, because it was latching to all kinds of different themes. It was catching me completely off guard. It was latching to everything. I was scared of everything. I was terrified of OCD. I was terrified of what OCD was capable of. And even just themes that had never bothered me before was hitting me for 6. Old themes were coming back. POCD latched really hard. Real event false memory OCD latched really hard. It felt like the tools were just so weak again. It felt like OCD just completely sliced through the tools and said, nope, this is real, this one's different. And I felt the guilt go through the roof, the shame go through the roof. The intrusive thoughts was a bombardment. I felt like I could hardly function. It was a really difficult time. And I remember this very vividly, right? Because I had the fear of being overwhelmed, which really hit hard with like the fear of fear, not being able to cope. But like I said, it was a barrage of all kinds of fears, all kinds of themes, old themes, new themes, themes I've never even heard of before, new fears latching. But the fear of fear really hit hard, of the fear of being overwhelmed and being stuck forever. So remaining overwhelmed for the rest of your life, not being able to function for the rest of your life, not being able to make a basic decision for the rest of your life. That really hit hard, and that really locked up, and I was internalized with the compulsive trying to work out, trying to solve if everything's going to be okay. Have I got out of this before? Like kind of trying to force my way out of it, trying to sort of push my way out. Imagine I was stuck in a hole and I was trying to frantically dig myself out of the hole. That's what I was doing. I was trying to look for that quick escape. I was trying to look for that quick relief. Okay, but all kinds of compulsions came flooding back in because I was desperate again. I was frantic again. Rather than taking a step back, surrendering, dropping weapons and thinking, okay, OCD, do what you're going to do, I did the complete opposite. I tried to fight it. I tried to resist. I tried to completely get into that battle with OCD, that tug of war, that back and forth, get me out, get me out, get me out. That's how it felt, right? But therefore, I had to do the opposite. But I'll get to how we deal with this a bit later on. But a memory that really sticks vividly in my mind is that it's quite a funny, you'll probably laugh, but I remember I just got out of the shower and I was in a really low place, and this was like 8 in the morning, a bit earlier than that, so it was 7 in the morning, I was going to work, and I got out of the shower and then I woke up, and you know when you wake up and it's just, I just felt my brain was on fire from the moment I woke up. So I woke up and I was like, how on earth am I going to get through today? Like, how can I get through this day? It was a slog, and it was just keeping my head above water to get through that day. Just to, even if I could make it to 7:30, that would have been an achievement. And I thought, oh my fuck, like, how am I going to get through this? How can I even function? I got a big meeting at work coming up at 9 a.m. and there I am, led in bed, and I cannot even think about which way to the bathroom, right? And it felt like I was so depersonalized, I was disassociated, I was so deflated, I was chronically locked up in anxiety, I was crying. You know, it was a real low place. And please, look, I'm not saying this to scare you, but I'm just showing you the realities of this is when we go into a coasting period and when we get hit with a setback after coasting. And this is what happens, okay? So it's important that we're aware. It's important that we're aware of what OCD can do when we get complacent, when we get cocky. Okay, so important that you hear this, all right? So, yeah, and the memory is that I got out of the shower, I managed to drag myself to the bathroom, got out of the shower, and I was wiping down like the shower tray because all the condensation on the shower tray, and I was like, that's what it was like for a good 5 minutes, just right, for a long period of time. And this is really sad saying this, but I can look back and think, fucking hell, this is what position I was in. I actually almost collapsed with the anxiety, right? I didn't obviously physically collapse, I didn't pass out, but it was just, my body felt so heavy and so weighed down, I was like, I can't get through this day. How the fuck can I get through this day? So I actually pretty much fell on the floor. Like, I was led in the shower crying, because I just thought, I just can't do this. I just can't get through the day. And the biggest thing that scared me was, like, I couldn't see an end. I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Because when you get hit with a setback, you forget what it's like not to be triggered, don't you? You forget what it's like to not be suffering. That you forget that you can't recall that. And that's how it tricks you into doing the compulsions again, because that's how it tricks you into, you're going to feel this way forever, and you get locked in, you get fixated on how you feel, you get glued into how you feel, because you forget what it was like when you wasn't suffering. And always remember that. If you're going for a setback right now and you're watching me speak and you're thinking, Sam, I'm fucked, I feel locked in the setback, what do I do? Well, remember that how you feel now will feel like your forever state. That's how it will feel. But we have to take it one step at a time. And I'm going to get to this in a moment. But yeah, and I remember that, and just picking myself up the floor. I got through this day, by the way. I got to work. I managed to get to work. I remember many times running to the bathroom crying. It felt like my brain was just completely frazzled. I didn't know this setback was capable. I didn't know I could have a setback this large. I didn't know that was possible. Right? And what's this? Is 4 years ago. I didn't know that was possible to have such a big setback like that. And it lasted about a month, right? It was a month, but I needed that. It gave me a massive kick up the ass, because it gave me, they said, Sam, you cannot get complacent again. You can't get cocky. And I was fucked off. I was angry with myself. I was frustrated with myself. I said, Sam, you thought you were out of the woods. You thought you were in the clear, and you thought very wrong, you stupid twat. And here come the self-downing, here the self-hating, right? The self-neglect, the self-beratement. You stupid idiot. How could you have been so stupid? This and that. That obviously didn't help, but it felt totally natural for me to go down that path, right? So that happened, and I always say that to people that are going for a setback, or maybe they're coasting. Like I said, I'm not trying to completely terrify you here, but it's very important that you're aware of the reality of this disorder, okay? Because it can suddenly bite, and it's going to try and look for a way in. It's going to try and look for any vulnerabilities, any chinks in your armor. Is going to try and target and find a way in and seep through. It will do that, okay? Anyway, I'm going to get to how we deal with these setbacks after I drink this coffee before it goes too cold. If anybody can guess what I'm drinking, is it an Americano? Is it a cappuccino? Is it a latte? And if it's a latte, is it a vanilla latte? Is it a caramel latte? Is it a toffee latte? Is it anything else? Maybe it's just a black coffee. Maybe it's just a standard coffee with a bit of milk in it. I don't. Number one, don't fucking coast. Right? Be careful if you're coasting. You can prevent the big setback and the major relapses if you stay on top of the work, stay on top of the maintenance work, okay? And just ensure you're not coasting and just completely taking the foot off the gas and almost pretending that OCD isn't a thing, thinking you're in the clear, just saying, oh, I'll deal with it when it gets bad. Just look out for that. That's the number one to look out for. Oh, I'll deal with it when it gets bad. I'll deal with it when I'm in crisis. I'll deal with it when the times are difficult. I'm all right in a minute. I'm fine. Don't really want to think about OCD. It's a negative in my life. Just fuck off. I'll deal with it. If you want to come back, I'll deal with it when you get bad again. Be wary. Be wary of that mistake. I am the living proof of that mistake. In 2021, that's exactly what I did, and it bit me on the bottom, right? So just be very, very careful. So that's number one, don't coast. Number two is that when you're going through this, it's very important. Oh, I've just kicked my camera stand, bear with me. There we are. Right, so when you're going through this, you've got to remember that we have to wear the discomfort. I love the word wear because it's so crucial. You are wearing the discomfort. It's like if this jumper that I'm wearing was incredibly uncomfortable, I'm wearing it. I'm getting on with the day wearing it. And the reason we say wearing it is because it's, you're wearing the anxiety. You're not stopping anything. You're not putting anything off. You're not cancelling plans. You're not completely saying, well, that's it, my life's on hold now until this anxiety's gone. No, we have to learn to wear it. If you was wearing a coat that was uncomfortable, you wouldn't just completely cancel your plans and lie in bed all day, would you? You'd get on with the day wearing the discomfort, wearing the uncomfortable item of clothing. It wouldn't be nice. It wouldn't be pleasant. You are terrified of. Anything that you hold very rigid beliefs around, anything that you have a tendency to catastrophize over, anything that you hold quite low frustration tolerance beliefs over. Maybe it's, I can't stand this, or I can't bear that, or I couldn't cope with this. Maybe it's a worst case scenario that you'd be scared of. And OCD is looking to pounce. It's waiting to pounce. Okay, so OCD knows exactly what it is you're terrified of. Maybe you find quite often you have fears of being written off as a bad person, as doing something wrong, and labeling yourself as an undeserving person, bad, no good, worthless, not worthwhile, just totally life ruined. If I've done this and there's no coming back from this, passing that irreversible line, you've gone past the point of no return. Maybe that's sort of like the guilt themes or the taboo themes or moral related fears, whatever it may be. OCD will target that. But remember that it's all due to fear, and we hold irrational beliefs around our core fears. So what we do in coaching calls is that we identify your main core fears, and we'll sit down together and think, well, what is it that we're actually scared of here? What are you terrified of here? Because remember, that you're not just in this fear cycle for no reason. It's not like it's just been given to you. You haven't just been given OCD and then you're just scared of something. You'd have irrational beliefs around particular fears and particular topics and particular subjects, and OCD is thriving. OCD is flourishing due to your irrational beliefs that you hold around these particular fears. So this is why it's very important that what we do is dissect these fears. Initially, we address them and think, okay, what is it that you're scared of here? Because each time you're stuck, each time that you're triggered or going for a relapse, going through a setback, you know, when you just feel totally trapped in that OCD cycle, that isn't happening for no reason. Okay, somebody hasn't just cursed a spell on you and gone, oh, you're stuck with OCD, there's nothing that you can do. No, it's happening due to a fear cycle. If we start dissecting that fear, if we start lowering that fear, then OCD has nothing. But of course, the skill and what we do together on coaching calls and with your disputing work and your reading and your belief work and your behavior work, you start to break those fears down between the calls, and that's how progress starts to happen. Because look right now, if you're watching this video and you feel very stuck, that ain't happening for no reason. It's not like you're just stuck for no reason. The skill on the recovery journey is thinking, well, what is it that I'm scared of? What is fueling this suffering? What is the source of the problem? What is the root cause of my suffering? And when we get to that, which is what we will do, no matter how hard it can be, no matter how impossible it can feel, no matter how hopeless you feel right now, no matter how stuck and trapped you feel right now, it is possible to make progress because it's a fear cycle. OCD takes orders from our belief systems, okay? We have very rigid beliefs around particular core fears. As we start ripping them apart, as we start getting under them with perspective shifts and unconditional self-acceptance, other acceptance and life acceptance, these fears start to untangle. You start to unwire the beliefs that you're holding around these particular fears. Then OCD starts backing down as a byproduct. And this is why, if you just try and get rid of OCD, if you just try and eliminate OCD, it doesn't work because you can't just fight. You're not just trying to fix it and cure it and get rid of it. What you're doing is seeing, well, how is OCD thriving? How is OCD flourishing? And this is why we take that quite thorough approach, quite a detailed approach in our coaching calls, because what we do in our coaching setup, we think, right, okay, straight away, what is it that you're scared of? Right? We're not looking to get rid of your OCD in call number one. What we're doing is looking at the framework which is allowing OCD to thrive. And bit by bit by bit, we start deconstructing that framework by chipping away at the core fears and the beliefs that you're holding, whilst also the behaviors, the compulsions that you're doing, which is reinforcing those fears and reinforcing those irrational beliefs. We'll also take a look at life structure and all the poor habits that you are partaking in, all the compulsions that you are performing, all the avoidance behaviors, the instant gratification behaviors, the laziness, the procrastination, all these different behaviors that play a big part in our suffering. We look to tackle them. We break them down in a thorough, detailed manner, because then OCD really starts taking a step back. But you must remember that this isn't a quick fix. This isn't a sudden change, right? You don't just come on call number one and go, right then, Sam, let's take a look at my fears. This is what I'm scared of. Help me. Now, of course, we'll identify the fear. We'll look at the beliefs that you're holding. We'll change them into rational beliefs. We'll do all the disputing questions as you read the books. But please don't expect a quick fix. Please. These beliefs around these core fears can be very deep-seated, very deeply ingrained, because usually they are being reinforced from a young age, through childhood, right? We tend to learn irrational thinking from quite a young age, especially the conditional acceptance, especially the writing humans off, especially sort of that competitive side. Oh, I must be the best. I must be perfect. I must always achieve. And my life is ruined, sort of the finality of it all. My life is ruined if X, Y, and Z. My life is over if this happens. OCD thrives off that kind of thinking. It's too rigid. It's too black and white. It's too all or nothing. It's way too rigid. Okay, so what we need to do is tackle them again and again and again and think, well, what is it that's causing this suffering? And what I love about this approach is that no matter how deeply ingrained these beliefs are, no matter how deeply seated or deep rooted they are, because we take the approach of we are accountable for our own mental health, we choose to break this down. Meaning that what we then do is that we put our emotional health in our hands. And what I mean by that is we say, hang on a minute. I can't keep saying this thing in the past is causing my depression. I can't keep saying this intrusive thought is causing my anxiety. I can't keep saying this potential worst case scenario is causing my panic attack. I can't keep saying that this thing in the past is fueling my guilt and shame. It's influencing, it's contributing, yes. Okay, external events do that. But what we do and what we focus on is the internal problem. And that is the belief systems and the behaviors and the life structures and so on, all the things that we work on. Because when we do that, we then think, I constructed my belief systems. I created my belief systems. I invented my belief systems. And I foolishly choose to cling on to my irrational belief systems. Therefore, I can now choose to rewire those belief systems, which lead to healthier results emotionally. Okay? Now, I love that because it means that we are accountable, as in you are. You watching this video, you are accountable for your own mental health, because there is nothing worse when you feel totally lost and trapped and stuck with OCD, feeling hopeless. Where you're like, well, excuse my language, well, I'm fucked. You know, I'm trapped, I'm stuck. Like, what can I do? Especially with like something like real event false memory OCD. Because many times I used to say, well, no, I'm fucked because this thing's happened in the past and there's no way out of this. I'm done. Not knowing at the time that the reason I was stuck was because of my perspectives, which were very faulty, and my irrational belief systems. And because I started to change them, that then started to allow OCD to unlatch. And then I could go towards more mental freedom and mental liberation. But the problem was that because it will take time for sure, but the problem initially was that I couldn't see how it was an internal problem. What we will show you in coaching courses is how that you can see how you are getting yourself into this state emotionally, because it's our own belief system, it's our own framework is allowing OCD to flourish. You won't see that. If you're new on this journey, you won't see that. And this changed my life. It saved my life. Not just with OCD, but in life. Because people can be very quick to blame everything else and go, oh, that may be depressed, that may be sad, that may be this, that may be that. But when you realize that I control my emotional destiny and I am in charge of my own emotional fate due to my own perspectives, my own belief systems, then you can do something about it when you are disturbed, when you are distressed, when you are in emotional turmoil, when you are in emotional despair. You realize that rather than saying, I'm totally hopeless, I've got no hope, no choice, what do I do, I can't do this anymore, rather than going down that path, we think, hang on a minute. Although this unfortunate event has happened, or whatever it is, whatever the fear is that you have right now watching this video, you realize that it's your belief systems that's fueling the emotional reaction. And therefore, that gives you the power. It gives you the power because you can then do something about it. Because what we don't want is that feeling of totally being trapped, feeling that there's no way out because we can't change our suffering and think, oh no, what do? I can't do this any longer. What you realize with this approach is what we teach you in the coaching course is that no matter what it is, no matter what the fear is, no matter what you're scared of, no matter how strange, unusual, taboo, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, because once we start tackling the belief side of things, then you're on. You build momentum, then you go for it, because you realize, I'm disturbing myself here. I am depressing myself. I am fueling my own anxiety due to my own irrational beliefs. And when you start making movement there, it's really freeing, because you then realize in life that nothing can disturb you if you allow it to. Now, of course, you're not trying to become a robot. You're not becoming totally emotionless, right? I can still feel emotions of sadness, regret, remorse, frustration, annoyance, disappointment. I want those emotions. Those are healthy negative emotions, because if something doesn't go my way, I want to feel disappointed. I want to feel frustrated. I want to feel annoyed. Why? Well, because it means that I'm more likely to make a change. I'm more likely to make an adjustment so I can get more of what I want and less of what I don't want. But the unhealthy negative emotions of chronic guilt, shame, depression, anxiety, panic, low mood, all these debilitating, dysfunctional emotions, they aren't productive. They aren't effective, nor are they very efficient to how we want to live our life and achieve our goals and fully thrive and flourish in our life. They just hinder us, they block us, they stop us from doing what we want to do by enjoying our life to the maximum. Okay, so you want to be really tackling these belief systems which fuel those emotional reactions. REBT, as you learn in the first book, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable by Anything, Yes Anything, by Dr. Albert Ellis, changed my life when I realized that I have the key to my own emotional fate. Therefore, I choose to disturb myself. I choose to offend myself. I choose to upset myself due to my faulty belief systems. Things can affect me, things can contribute to my emotions, things can compromise how I feel, of course. But ultimately, what really disturbs me is my belief systems. And if I start making a change there, then I can get to a place with more of a robust, sustainable, not only recovery, but mental health and emotional well-being, rather than swaying like the wind. Oh, this triggered me, that depressed me, that made me anxious, that made me panic, that made me guilty, that made me ashamed. That isn't sustainable. That isn't stable at all. Okay? We want to be building that sustainable mental health, and that comes from taking accountability and being responsible for our own mental health by thinking, hang on a minute, I am disturbing myself with my own belief systems.
But I wonder it's holding back. Forums are risky. I spend a lot of time in forums. Forums can sometimes have good information, but I usually advise most people to avoid them because they're full of reassurance. No matter who's moderating them, they always don't moderate them well enough. They've got a hell of a lot of reassurance. It's probably got the same people in it I saw 10, 12 years ago when I was suffering. And the forums are highly risky because they're a negative cycle where people are mainly speaking and doing comparisons of reassurance and speaking in a very negative way. The people who then get better and move, they end up leaving the forum. So you've got no sort of people spreading too much hope, and you've got the ones spreading more negativity. So it's mainly used for reassurance. So I would keep away from those. Treading with more uncertainty, viewing the world as more from a sort of a more positive light of uncertainty of our lives, rather feel relief and they're able to function and live life again. Once they get to that stage, what normally happens is they think, well, this is as good as it's going to get. I'm happy with this. I'm going to leave it there. And they end up just leaving it at that position. And this is a terrible shame because they were so close to moving to recovery, but because they get to a certain point and then they think, I can function here, this is enough, I don't want to do any more work on it, I don't want to waste any more time to OCD. That's a common thought. I don't want to waste any more of my life or time to OCD. They get to that point and they stop. And that is a real shame, because that is where they've then got the energy to learn and do the work now that they're out of that crisis point to move forward. Listen to those ideas, try that briefly, and then I'll jump to this one, try that briefly. It's like setting up 1,000 different businesses. They're not going to work. You need to concentrate on learning the things that you're learning, giving it time with each person.
If you are venting to them, if you are confessing to them, if you are confiding in them, because with your OCD and all the things that's going through your mind and things that you're stuck with and things that you're suffering with, it's a problem. Because they're going to see you as somebody that's in distress, somebody that's needs help, somebody that's you're very sad, you're stuck, right? So they're going to try and help you. But whilst it's very well intentioned when they give you that advice or they give you that support or whatever, that can often be reassurance. And what people fail to see is that can become the exact problem keeping you stuck. For example, when I was suffering, I confessed to my girlfriend then, now wife. I confessed about all the thoughts that I was having, past events, real events, false memories. So she could tell me that, oh, Sam, you've done nothing wrong. You're not a bad person. You would never do anything wrong. It's just your OCD, blah, de, blah, de, blah. That would then give me reassurance. But that was like giving an addict their drug. My drug, I was addicted to certainty. I was addicted to reassurance. I was addicted to figuring out and having an answer. And so I used to explain everything to my girlfriend. She would say, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. Everybody will still love you regardless. Or even if you did this, I'll still love you, or whatever. I then get that relief. And then I feel like, oh, I'm now over this. But OCD would morph, it would switch, it would find something else. Okay, so when we speak to our loved ones about this, you've got to be very, very careful. Because for a start, they have no idea what you're going through, because how can they? They don't have OCD. Think about this. If they had some obscure foot disease, as a random example, and you don't have it yourself, you could read up on it, but you're never going to fully understand the inner workings of it and how it operates and how painful it can be and how to get better or whatever. That you're not going to understand it because you don't have it yourself. And OCD is like that, okay? OCD is not something that just the layman can just understand. It doesn't quite work like that because it's way too complex. And the trouble that you're also going to find is that when you start talking about OCD to people will dumb it down, right? So for example, let's say you are at a restaurant with your friends and you start talking about your OCD. Now, as soon as somebody hears the word OCD, their ears will perk up and think, oh, okay, I've got OCD. I can relate to that. And I had a great example of this, right? I was talking to friends because although I don't sort of openly talk about, I work with OCD just because you're on the back foot immediately, what's OCD and so on. But obviously people know that I have OCD from when I was stuck. And they obviously now know that I'm a coach for people with OCD. And somebody said to me, oh, Sam, I heard you're a coach and you work with people with OCD. I said, oh, yeah. And they said, oh, yeah, I have OCD. And I went, okay, are you getting help? How is it going? What, how are you with it? Are you suffering? Are you stuck? And they said, oh, no, not really. No, it's just like a quirky little trait. When I put the fish fingers in the oven, I like them all lined up. And I just went, And that's because, although that would have annoyed me many, many years ago, when I was really stuck thinking, oh my God, if only you knew what OCD was really like. If only you knew it's not just a quirky little trait that you boast about, that you show off. It's a very debilitating disorder. However, I'm at a place now that I don't expect anyone to understand. This made me view things like that. My frustration tolerance is very high. That's not to say I don't get frustrated and annoyed about things. So of course I do, I'm human. And things do piss me off. I might be out driving and someone cuts me up and I get pissed off for 2 seconds. But that's it. I then very rational about that. Or, my football team might lose, which happens a lot. I got a lot of healthy emotions. God, that's bloody a pain in the ass. And sort of... a healthy frustration, because that's great. I love showing emotion at football and at sport, and I love the in-depth side of things. I like that, so I'm not taking emotion away. Stoicism and being rational isn't taking all emotion. You're not some numb robot that doesn't have emotion about anything.
Comes from nowhere. Compulsive lying comes from a fear of rejection in many cases, right? Not every case, but a lot of cases it comes from rejection. Whether they think I'm a loser, whether they think I'm stupid, whether they think I'm silly, I have to brag, I have to get my ego. So I think a lot of people misunderstand the Freudian and Jung work, Carl Jung, about the id, the ego, and the superego. The ego is just coming from fears. You have a fear of rejection. See, a lot of people think people are narcissists. Narcissism is real, not nearly as common as the modern world has exploded. I mean, everyone's a narcissist nowadays. Everyone's gaslighting. It doesn't work like that. Most people who you think are narcissists or have narcissistic tendencies are just insecure off fears of rejection. It's so easy to spot because I've worked on this myself and I see that in other people now and I'm like, wow, they're really afraid of being rejected. So I want you to all think about this. I still lie. I'm a human. It's not the end of the world. I don't lie nearly as much. I still have a healthy dosage of rejection. You're never going to get rid of rejection. It's like saying you're going to get rid of an emotion. It's not how it works. You realize that if you don't look like that, you completely tank. And you're like, I look like shit and no one's going to accept me in my life. I'm a worthless person, etc. So really take a look at that. That doesn't mean you can't, go to the gym. It doesn't mean you can't put makeup on. It just means that if you're doing that to attach to your self-worth, which is what we do by mentality, protection mentality, but you can override a lot of that by changing your beliefs and long-term commitment. It's an important one with burnout. Okay, so what if I am burned out? Let's say I'm burned out and tired more than the average person. What are the benefits I can get from potentially pushing through? And this is rational belief that means the most to me, okay? I get to experience things that many people don't experience. I get to build my hardship levels. I get to come on here after a long day and make a video, okay? And then I have to do a bunch of other stuff after this. To me, and I don't have children, so there's pros and cons to why I can do that. I understand if you have kids. But, you're not going to sleep if you have young children. We have dogs sleeping in our beds. You are going to have many scenarios in your life to where you are going to feel completely overwhelmed, completely like you can't handle it anymore. But changing your belief system will help you handle that. And the reason why all of this is so important, okay, is because of this. And this is the most important thing, in my opinion, in this particular thing. This is actually how I go about disputing my beliefs myself. When things go wrong in my life or things I want to work on, or I'm journaling, etc. Okay. Being tired, being burned out, and being stressed. All these are uncomfortable sensations, UCS. Uncomfortable sensations. That's all it is. But I'm more tired, but you're going to make a mistake. Yep, it's an uncomfortable sensation. And remember, you got to lose the term optimal. The word optimal is a very bad word. The reason why it's bad is because nothing is optimal. And if you're constantly striving for optimal and attaching it to your self-worth, this doesn't mean you don't put the work in. It's just realizing you can't force things in the way you're imagining. Things come much more fluid and natural than we think. But we're always trying to force things in our belief system because we think that's the best way to go forward. So these things right here are absolutely primarily more problematic because of the fears that we experience based on actually physiologically being burned out, actually physiologically being tired. The belief and the fear perpetuates the cycle. There's nothing wrong with being tired. There's nothing wrong with being burned out at times. Ask a young mother from 1930 as a stay-at-home. Ask a mother in 1942 during World War II where those women had to go to the factories to build things because all the husbands were away and they had 3 kids at the house, more conservative family styles based off more religious context. You don't think they were burned out? They were fucking burned out. They just were. But they pushed through because we didn't have all this nonsense that we have today. There is unfortunately a large crowd of people with millions of followers who make a living off telling you how to be scared. Okay? I'm doing the opposite because I think it's very unhelpful. Like I hear stuff about why you gotta have these crazy sleep routines, why you gotta have these crazy health tips. You don't gotta have any of that shit. None of it. What matters in life to me is building relationships, grit, hardship, learning through mistakes. The same principles that have been around for thousands of years that people have tried to repackage and put in new shapes and forms. It's not sexy. It doesn't look good. And this is part of life. Being tired, feeling burned out, it's all part of life. You will not achieve the things you want to achieve in your life if you don't become more comfortable with these particular things. It's nice to be heard, but it's not absolutely necessary. And the more that we think it's necessary, the more we get ourselves into trouble. And number 5 is, I must have a plan and I must know if I'll recover. Something that many people hear me say in our webinars and in private one-on-one coaching is OCD recovery comes when you don't need OCD recovery. What does that mean? Of course I need OCD recovery. Well, you don't. You don't need OCD recovery. Thousands of years of people only are recovering recently. They suffered all the way up until they die with OCD, and they live till a ripe old age, chronically stuck with OCD. A lot of them probably reverted to alcohol, drugs, or other compulsive behaviors to escape the discomfort, but they did live. It will not kill you in the way that you imagine. So getting comfortable with not having a blueprint or a plan. The amount of people that come in and they say to me, again, it's understandable because life works in this fashion. Life works very much in plans and strict routines. So like, let me give you an example, right? Football season is the football in America, not soccer. Football season is 16 games. A baseball season is X amount of games. You graduate undergrad in 4 years. You graduate high school in 4 years. Takes 6 months on average for a broken leg to heal, et cetera, et cetera. Where OCD has none of that. A large part of it comes from the unknown and the uncertainty. So not needing a plan will take some time because a lot of people don't like to feel confused. So this is something I don't see talked about a lot, and it's something that I personally went with. Confusion brings a feeling that perpetuates reassurance seeking and compulsive behavior. So I'll say that again. The confusion brings a feeling confused. It's a feeling of uncertainty that feels so real, which perpetuates compulsions, reassurance seeking. So being able to feel confused is one of the best things you could do for yourself when you're going through OCD and anxiety recovery. The chronic shame and the chronic guilt, that comes from berating oneself. So you got to be careful when anyone telling you, when anyone you hear someone say you should be guilty or you should this or you deserve that, universally, just brush that. Let people say what they want, become comfortable with that. Humans are very rigid and they're very black and white. I wouldn't have known any of this unless I suffered with OCD. I always say, stoicism will live on because OCD sufferers tend to become the most stoic individuals on the planet. There's a lot of really big names out there in the psychological community, many of the individuals I talk about, who take life entirely too seriously and are really struggling with shame and guilt and depression. Like if you look at, when I look at someone, Jim Carrey is a great example. I could see his beliefs straight off the bat. Now, he had serious depression. That was not for no reason. He held very strong, rigid, irrational beliefs, which were the majority of his depression. I put money on it. Jordan Peterson, also another great intellect. I've read, both of his new books. I haven't read Mass for Meaning. I think he's one of the most incredible psychological minds to ever live. If I ever got to do a discussion with him, I would probably be smiling from ear to ear because I really look up to him in many ways. But on the other side of the coin, he takes life entirely too seriously, and if he was to cheat on someone, or if his wife Tammy would cheat on him, it would be very bad because of his rigidity and his beliefs. And remember, acceptance doesn't mean agreement. When individuals cheat, when we cheat, we have to look at how we can constructively change, and healthy dosages of guilt and shame can help move you in the right direction when you use it as such. Chronic shame and guilt does not.